Welcome to the Own It Powercast, the place to be when you get serious about making big changes and accelerating growth in your life and in your relationships. Finally create the life you've always wanted, living life on your own terms. Learn how to take your fear and turn it into powerful choices that will create sustained change. Now your host, Mary Baker.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Own It Powercast, the place to come to get what you need to move yourself forward. Hey, it's Mary Baker, and welcome to episode 284, Finding Your Center When the World Feels Like It's Spinning. Well, welcome to a new month where we're going to be focusing on how to return to ourselves, get sane and grounded as much as we can, and to get clear and practice some radical self-care. So this month, it's all about finding your confidence, your true north, and let's face it, with everything going on, your sanity. So today we're going to talk about how incredibly hard it can be to get grounded when everything around you feels so uncertain, chaotic, and at times even threatening. Now, whether it's world events, personal crises, or both, fear can really pull us back into survival mode. And in that state, it's really easy to forget who we are and what we stand for. So we're going to explore why this happens through a body-based and kind of a neuroscience lens, like hello, fight or flight response. We're going to talk about how grief plays a really sneaky role when we're trying to hold it all together, and what it means to move, sometimes kicking and screaming, towards acceptance. You're also going to hear this month why boundaries, detachment, and reconnecting with your values are not just nice ideas, but I think essential tools for you to regain your sense of self in a chaotic world. But before we get into that, I also want to remind you that you can't do this work alone. You can't do all of it alone, at least. And if you need some support, sign up for a power hour with me, join the Facebook group, grab one of the courses in the show notes, and I'm working on a brand new one that'll be out soon. And find me in Substack. That's a great community over there. There's lots of ways for you to get connected there and get support and hang out with others who also need support. All right, so let's get into it. The first thing we want to do is begin here. Life is hard sometimes, really hard. And it's really hard out there for a lot of people right now. And if you're feeling off center, you're feeling anxious, you're feeling overwhelmed, some of you even feeling frozen, you're not broken and you're definitely not alone. You know, I think in the age of toxic positivity, I mean, some of it's really good, but some of it just gives you the vibe like you should be able to stay calm, grounded, and productive no matter what's happening. But let's be honest. When there are very real things going on, things that impact our bodies, our safety, our families, our financial security, our futures, it makes perfect sense to feel afraid. And fear isn't a flaw in your mindset. And tune in next week as I air my episode with Sue Reed on confidence, and I like what she says about fear. It's a very natural human response. It's there for a reason. It's there to protect us and give us very valuable information. So if you're struggling to feel centered right now, or you notice yourself just spiraling into worry, reacting to life instead of responding, or just feeling just disconnected from yourself, that doesn't mean you're doing something wrong. I think it means you're in it, in the messy middle of life, and your body and your nervous system are trying really hard to cope the best way they know how. The world can really feel like it's on fire sometimes. And again, whether it's global events, a personal crisis, and just the day-to-day pressure of trying to hold everything together, it's okay to admit that staying grounded right now seems impossible for some of you. And for others, maybe takes too much effort, that requires energy you feel like you don't have. Like I have a lot of people telling me they're just starting to get numbed out at this point, which makes sense. So this conversation today, I want it to be a safe space to tell the truth about that, to stop pretending we're supposed to have it all together all the time, and instead start learning what it looks like to come back to ourselves gently, even when the outside world isn't calm yet. So let's talk about what's actually happening in your brain and body when things feel chaotic or threatening. Because I think understanding this part, like really understanding, can help you show yourself some much needed compassion. And I think, as a side note, those of you who struggle with that self-compassion and are rather driven, maybe perfectionistic, very task-oriented, it's going to be hard for you to show your self-compassion because that's really vulnerable. And you didn't get a lot of that early on in life. Maybe you're not getting a lot of it now either from folks around you. And it's really hard to stay in fight or flight or freeze or F it and, stop and be vulnerable and give yourself compassion. So if you feel a little resistance come up around that, it's okay. If you've been trying to play it safe, you've been playing it guarded, right? When your brain senses danger, now whether that's a real threat or just the perception of one, it's going to kick into survival mode. I know you know that. The amygdala, that part of your brain responsible for scanning for threats, essentially hijacks the rest of your brain. Now, this is often called an amygdala hijack. So in that state, your nervous system shifts right into fight, flight, freeze, or fawn. Your logical thinking, your ability to stay grounded and respond with intention, that all goes offline for a bit. And here's the thing. Your body doesn't just do this in physical danger. And this is why it can be trickier to recognize when you're in it. Because it does this when you're overwhelmed by the news, let's say. When a text from that person you were scared to disappoint comes in. When a conversation turns heated, when you have to ask for what you need or set a boundary, when your nervous system remembers something that once felt unsafe. And remember, it's going to work in categories. So if it was unsafe in the past to ask for what you needed, it's going to feel unsafe now, no matter what. The body doesn't always know the difference between your past danger, your future worry, and what's actually really happening right now. All it knows is, this doesn't feel safe. And you're likely, once you start tuning in, right, because you disconnected from the body for a reason. Once you tune in, you're likely going to feel things that show up in your body like your tight chest, looping thoughts. Your jaw is more clenched than you ever realized. You feel fatigued, maybe shut down, procrastinating, trouble sleeping. Here's one you may not think about, a constant need to stay busy and distracted. Maybe there's a heightened sense of scanning your environment, that hypervigilance, and you have a really quick startle response, like loud noises, music, people yelling, things like that. Guys, this is just nervous system dysregulation, and it's not a sign that you're failing. It's a sign that your body's just trying to protect you the best way it knows how. We don't calm ourselves by yelling calm down at our thoughts. It doesn't work. We calm ourselves by creating safety in our body, a little bit at a time. That's why grounding practices, breath work, body movement, and even naming what we're feeling are so important. They give the body new signals. You're safe now, and you don't have to be on high alert. And that's what's key. Now, we'll get into more of those tools later in the episode, but for now, just know, if you've been feeling all over the place, there are good reasons for that, and there's nothing wrong with you. In fact, I'd be more worried about you if you said you were fine. Or here's a big one. The myth of perfect centering. Let's bust a myth while we're here, shall we? Grounding is not a destination. It's not a destination. It's a practice. And it doesn't always look calm and pretty or Instagram worthy. There's this unspoken idea that if we're quote unquote doing the work, we should reach some magical place where we're always calm, always regulated, and always able to respond with wisdom and grace. But that's just not how real life or real healing works. Not in my world. The truth is, I think getting centered looks different on different days. Like on some days, it might look like stepping outside for a walk. Maybe you feel like journaling. Maybe you practice some deep breathing. You might feel clear and steady. Other days, grounding might be crying in your car before walking into work. It might be canceling plans because your body's just telling you it's way too much and you can't do it. It might be texting a friend just to say, I'm really struggling today. And that counts. That matters. We don't need to wait until we feel completely calm to say we're grounded either. We ground ourselves in the middle of the damn mess by making small choices that support us, even when everything around us is loud, overwhelming, or uncertain. And it sure is out there right now, isn't it? So if you're not doing yoga or meditating every morning or handling stress like a monk, you're not failing. If all you did today was pause for like 5 seconds to take a breath, guess what you did? You practiced grounding. So let's let go of the fantasy that regulation means always feeling peaceful. Real grounding is messy, it's human, and it's enough. And I think it's really important because if you think it's unattainable, you're not even going to begin. You see too much of a gap between where you are today and where you'd like to be. What you imagine that should look like. And that's why I called it a myth, because I think it is. Now, we can't talk about that without talking about the role of boundaries and detachment. Because that becomes essential when the world around us feels really chaotic. When we're feeling overwhelmed, a natural instinct is to reach outward. We want to try to manage, control, and fix or carry things that aren't actually ours. And that's a survival skill. But here's the truth, and you know what I'm going to say. The more we try to control everything around us, the more out of control we're going to feel on the inside. That's where I think boundaries come in. Boundaries aren't about being harsh or distant. They're about knowing where we end and someone or something else begins. And I think they're one of the fastest ways to create emotional safety, especially when life feels really unpredictable. Sometimes that means physical boundaries, like not taking a call from someone who drains you. Other times it's emotional or mental boundaries, like choosing not to argue with someone who isn't willing to even meet you halfway. Or reminding yourself, I can care, but I don't have to carry this. I can care about it. I don't have to carry it. Big difference there. Detachment, that magical skill, is the one that supports boundaries. It doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop gripping so hard. It means you start practicing the mindset, and this is a practice all day long. I can show up with integrity, but I'm not responsible for controlling the outcome. I can have intention and bring as much integrity to the moment as I can, but I'm not responsible for controlling the outcome. Now, that may sound really simple, but I think it's really deep and transformational work, which is a process and takes time and effort. Especially for those of us who grew up in environments where we were trained to read the room, make others feel okay, or absorb the emotions of everyone around us. Healthy boundaries and detachment, I think, are how we start to actually come back to ourselves. I think they can create space in the chaos for us to say, okay, what is mine to manage and what's not? And how do I want to respond? Because the more we stay in that lane of what we can influence, and here the neuroscience is here to back it up, we get into the prefrontal part of our brain and out of our limbic system for a minute. And that's what helps us feel calmer, more grounded, and more confident. The other thing I think is really important to talk about, again, because I bring this up often, is values, right? And we want to look at our values as anchors, because if we're looking out there to be okay, trying to control outcomes, trying to make sure that we're doing everything perfectly or whatever, and people love us and all that crap. Instead of that, we need to go within, especially when it's really crazy out there. So in the middle of chaos, when you're not sure what to do next or how to feel steady, I think your values can really become your anchor. Like, think of values like that inner compass you carry with you no matter what's happening around you. They don't change with other people's moods or the news cycle or the emotional storms you might be weathering right now. They stay steady even when you don't. That's what I love about them. So when you feel overwhelmed or disconnected from yourself, I want you to stop and take a moment and ask yourself, what do I value? And that can help you come back to solid ground for a moment. Maybe it's integrity. Maybe in this moment, it's compassion, honesty, peace, growth, boundaries, maybe helping, maybe detaching. It doesn't matter what the value is. What matters is that it feels true to you. You can't fix everything around you, but you can act in alignment with who you want to be, especially when things are hard. And this is not easy stuff, but it's just something, again, you just practice it. You just practice and practice and practice. So maybe it's like speaking gently even when you're frustrated because you value kindness and you don't want to add to the craziness in the house. Maybe it is saying no to a request, even though you feel guilty because you value honoring your limits and you know that if you say yes to that, it's not going to end well. Here's one we all need to work on. Taking a break from the news or social media, not because you don't care, but because you value your mental health and you have to make a choice there. So these small choices grounded in your values, like your why, like why you're doing that, I think are a way of reclaiming your power because they remind you that no matter how chaotic the outside world gets, there's something inside you that remains true. You don't have to feel peaceful to live in alignment. I think that is a misnomer. You just have to keep asking yourself things like, okay, what kind of person do I want to be today, especially amidst all the crap going on out there? What matters to me right now? Or what would be the most honest, kind, or aligned next step, even if it's small? That's how we start to feel more anchored. Not by fixing everything, but by living out what we believe in one moment at a time. It also helps us stay in the moment, which helps us get out of our limbic system for a moment. You're probably going to jump back in. I get it. It's hard not to, especially with the news right now, everything flying at you from every direction. The other piece to this is grieving, healthy grieving. Something we talk a lot about here on the show, kicking and screaming towards acceptance. Because we got to talk about this piece because it often gets overlooked when we're trying to cope or stay grounded. Because here's the thing. When chaos hits or when life doesn't go the way we thought it would, there's a part of us that's grieving even if we don't realize it. You know, grief isn't just about death or loss in the traditional sense. It's broader than that. It's about letting go of what we wanted, what we expected, or what we thought we could control. I have a lot of clients walking through this right now. It's very real stuff. It's grieving that the world doesn't feel safe. It's grieving that a relationship isn't what we hoped. It's grieving that our body's reacting in ways we don't even understand. That life is messier, louder, or more uncertain and crazy and scary than we ever signed up for. And if you've ever found yourself resisting this stuff, resisting that truth, dragging your heels, or metaphorically kicking and screaming into reality, guess what? You're not alone. God, acceptance does not come easy. It's not a peaceful surrender at first. It's anything but. I think it's often raw, it's painful, and it's full of protest. We think this isn't fair. This isn't how it was supposed to go. I can't let go yet. I can't pretend this is okay. I'm not ready. That's normal. That's grief. And I think that when we don't allow ourselves to feel it, because we're supposed to be so damn positive 24/7, I think it tends to leak out in other ways. It's going to come out as anxiety, irritability, distraction, or even trying harder to fix what isn't fixable. I see that all the time in people who cannot let themselves surrender to the grief process. And I understand it, right? Because it's so vulnerable. And if you're not being vulnerable, you're trying to control something. Healthy grieving is about just being honest with ourselves. It's just dropping down into the feelings and saying things like, God, I'm so sad this is happening. I'm furious. I wish things were different. And I hate that this is real, but it is. And it's in that acknowledgement, I think, that truth-telling where we actually begin to breathe again. Because we're honoring our truth. You're honoring what the real self is sitting in right now. And I think that's where the fight inside of us starts to soften a little bit. Grieving validates, it clears space. It's that part, that awful back and forth and messy grief is actually making room for more grounding, more clarity, more peace. Because you're not bypassing the pain. You're not stepping over it into forgiveness or ignoring it and going up in your head. You're walking through it one breath at a time. All right. So how do you begin grounding again? So after all this, all the chaos, the fear, the grief, you might be wondering, okay, but what do I do? How do I even begin to feel grounded again when everything still feels upside down? Like we're all saying that. I think the good news is it starts small. Getting grounded does not mean fixing your whole life. It means creating small, consistent signals to your brain and body that say, look, you're safe enough to slow down for this moment, and you don't have to be in survival mode right now. Here are a few gentle ways to begin this. The first one you already know, come back to your breath. Just notice it. Don't try to perfect it. Even just, and this is wild, but one slow intentional exhale tells your nervous system, you can soften a little bit. You don't have to brace right now. You notice I didn't say everything's wonderful and fine, because it's not. What I'm saying is in this moment, you don't have to brace. You may have to brace tonight or tomorrow, but not right now. And then just tap into your senses. This is why mindfulness is used for trauma. Feel those feet on the floor. Maybe run some warm water over your hands. Light a candle. Sip something warm. Grounding through your senses pulls you out of the storm in your head for a moment and brings you back into your body, which is where you need to be in order to feel grounded. Gentle movement is another way. Do some stretching, take a walk, shake your arms out, whatever other methods that you want to do, because trauma and stress live in the body. And what we don't talk about enough, and I think we're talking more about now, is how movement actually helps release it, even in tiny doses. That's why kids do it. You know, if you watch kids, what they do with their bodies, especially toddlers and 5-year-olds who can't sit still, they're doing like Qigong and Tai Chi and they don't even know it. It's very interesting, the little movements that they do. If you practice Tai Chi or Qigong, I've noticed at least that there's a lot of similarities there of how it's healing for the body. The other thing you want to do is name what's true. Say it out loud or write it down. I'm overwhelmed. I'm grieving and I'm tired. You don't need to fix it. You probably can't fix it, which is why it feels overwhelming. You just need to name it. I think that is honoring yourself, and the more self-trust that you can create, the more grounded you will feel. And then check in with your values. Say, okay, what would it look like to be kind to myself right now? Or what would it mean to live in alignment with who I want to be today, even just for an hour? Another thing is you got to limit your exposure. It's okay and it's necessary to take breaks from the news, from social media, from people who are in constant crisis. That's not avoidance. Avoidance is a different deal. It's wise self-preservation. It's very mindful and you're consciously doing it. That's why it's not avoidance. It's really important when your nervous system is already on the edge. You have to pare down. You got to set some boundaries around it. And above all, know that grounding isn't about perfection. It's not about becoming some Zen master overnight. It's about slowly reclaiming your relationship with yourself and your body and the present moment, even if it's messy, even if it's 5 seconds at a time, even if some days you can't do it at all. It's okay. What's really great about this stuff is do what you can, when you can, how you can, and be proud of that and know that every little bit really helps. These small returns, they're the practice. They're the medicine, and they matter more than you think. So all of this is about compassion, not perfection. You're allowed to fall apart and keep trying at the same time. It doesn't have to be either or. And I think getting stuck in the black and white can keep us more stuck. So if you're feeling scattered and you're feeling anxious and you're not quite yourself lately, you have a lot of company. And I hope this episode maybe just gave you a moment to pause, to breathe, and remember, you're not failing. You're not behind. You're simply human navigating a lot. Coming back to yourself, especially in chaos, is not a one-time thing. It's an all-day long thing sometimes. It's a practice. Sometimes it's going to feel easier. Other days it might feel effing impossible. But just know that each small act of returning, whether it's setting a boundary or checking in with your body or simply saying that truth out loud, is a powerful step toward grounding and self-trust. Because fight or flight or freeze or fawn is going to disconnect you from who you really are. That's why you have to practice this. And you don't need to have it all figured out. All you need to do is just show up with honesty, try to do some self-compassion, and that willingness to just practice coming home to yourself again and again. If this episode spoke to you, feel free to share it with someone else who might need that reminder that they're not alone either. All right. So today we talked about how when life feels overwhelming, whether due to personal stress and or world events, I think it can be incredibly hard to stay grounded and connected to ourselves. So we're just normalizing how real that struggle is, and we explore what is actually happening in our brain and our body during chaotic times. And why staying centered isn't about perfection. It's about small, compassionate returns to yourself. We also talked about how healthy boundaries and detachment and returning to our values and grieving what we wish was, I think all play a role in helping you feel more rooted in your own life. Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. I hope this was helpful. Again, share this episode with anyone you think can use it. If you need some help and support, check the show notes. There's lots of links there. Reach out to me. I answer every message and every email. And don't forget to tune in next week with my conversation with Sue Reed, the confidence coach. All right, so pay it forward, keep focusing on you, and I'll see you next time.
We hope you took away some useful insights and tools you can begin using right away. If you did, please leave a positive review and share on your social media. Because could you imagine if everyone in your life really got it together? Remember, own it now, so you can really own it later.